Sometimes when people have a birthday, they have a bit of a crisis. But of course I didn't. I just happened to spot a nice car that I liked and decided to do a little bit of shopping at the pharmacy. Nothing to worry about there. And as everyone knows, I'm always at the clubs anyway. It's nothing new. How old are you?
I'm 28.
You'll do. Want to go out?
No.
I'm Rich and a doctor. Oh, chiropractic.
Okay.
Hello, it's Paul at Instant Chiro, and today I'm talking to Stephen Small from IDD Disc Therapy Clinics. Stephen, how are you, my friend?
I'm very well, thank you, Paul. Thank you for having me on.
And we're from the same part of the world, but in different parts of the world right now.
We are, yes. We actually probably grew up not too far apart, about 50 miles, I think.
Yes, I'm from Nottingham, so and you're from?
I'm from the mighty Leicester.
The mighty Leicester. I spent many times in Leicester, around Leicester, De Montfort University and all that sort of thing.
Yes.
It's a wonderful place. And I had my first mango lassi there, which I've just discovered they've moved to Oregon now. So I've got mango lassi in Oregon.
Sorry. Yes.
And now you're from intervertebral differential dynamics, which we had a huge long discussion about at the beginning here, trying to figure out which way to get it across to people. Tell me what intervertebral differential dynamics is.
Okay, so thanks, Paul. We say it more simply, IDD therapy, and IDD therapy is a spinal decompression treatment which helped create the category of spinal decompression, which, as you know, is a very large category of spine care in the States and is growing around the world. Developed sort of in the late 1990s and moved from Atlanta, where this a sort of technological solution to decompressing and mobilizing targeted spinal segments kind of was born. And from sort of humble beginnings, it's grown and has become more widely accepted, in the States and everywhere, and is quite well, is very popular amongst chiropractors, and is expanding with physical therapists and osteopaths. So IDD therapy, is a treatment for a certain category of patient who need something more than manual therapy.
That's fantastic, because I actually phoned a couple of clinics off of your iddtherapy.co.uk page to find out what was happening, and it's always a good sign. I phoned up one of the chiropractors, Central
Chiropractic.
Yes, Central Chiropractic Clinic in Coventry, and the guy answered the phone after it was a long time, and he was like, "I'm sorry, we're way too busy." Now that's always a good sign. He couldn't actually speak to me because he was too busy, and the chiropractor was booked up for 6 weeks. He said.
Yes, it's a very they're very busy, and they do very well with IDD therapy, an integral part of the clinic. So, well, that's always good to hear. Yes,
and I've looked at a lot of your things, and actually, I think I contacted you when I had some clinics in England, and I think I actually contacted you. But things, my career took a handbrake turn as well at one point, and that kind of derailed me, and I sold the clinics.
All right.
And so, tell me what you're doing now. What is this product you're selling, or what is this service you're selling? Should I say?
Yeah, so IDD therapy, spinal decompression, it was developed in Atlanta, and somebody I knew was connected to the factory where they were making these devices, and I knew him, and I knew what was happening, and this was sort of in the sort of mid-noughties, I suppose, when spinal decompression as a category was starting to take off, and he'd been involved in kind of getting FDA clearances for the manufacture of these machines, the Accu Spina. So he said, well, actually, we might be able to develop this in Europe, and I kind of got a sales and marketing, business development sort of background. Would I be interested? And I didn't know. I hadn't worked in healthcare, and I didn't know anything about it. And I visited a clinic. The nearest clinic, or the easiest one for me to get to, was actually in Cairo, of all places. And they'd got one of these machines. I think they got two machines actually in Cairo. So I visited a clinic in Cairo, and I was just talking to the team there, and they were kind of going from 6 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock at night with this treatment. And all of the practitioners working there were just full of enthusiasm for what it was doing for patients. I spoke to some of the patients who spoke English, and they were just saying how wonderful it had been, how they'd been struggling with pain and hadn't been able to kind of get a solution to their problem, with the sort of traditional, not to say traditional, but with what was currently available, from manual therapy and then to that next step of whether it's pain management, injections and surgery. So having seen this, it was like one of these things where, okay, if I don't do this and I see it on every street corner 5 years down the line, I am going to regret this for the rest of my life. So from a variety of things that I'd been doing with the sort of multinational, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go for this. So we started bringing the machines, the Accu Spina, into Europe. We're in the UK, so the first machines came into the UK. And it's it was a very slow start, but has picked up over time. And initially, spinal decompression and IDD therapy, which is a kind of, I suppose, the leading form of spinal decompression. I can elaborate a little bit more on that in a while, but was really expanding in the US. And I came in and I was knocking on the doors of clinics in the UK saying, I've got this fantastic thing, it's like the answer to all your problems, blah blah blah, and they were like, go away, get lost. And it's like, why would you not want this? And when you've got a new treatment, then it can take time to develop. And the big perception was this is a great big machine, what do I need that for? The perception was that perhaps this was the same as traction, and perhaps in the UK and in Europe, traction, and probably in the States as well, traction was not being used. It had kind of been shown to be not effective and not to be used, and it was categorically, basically the guidelines in the UK at least were saying do not use traction. So we had this big traction-looking machine, which was at a price point higher than a typical traction machine, and so people were not interested. But yet we had this context of everything that was going so well in America with these other clinics dotted around and the experience of the patient. So we persisted. And gradually, once you start getting the first clinics on board and they're starting to use it, and then they're talking about the outcomes that they're able to get for those patients who need something more than manual therapy, then you start to build some momentum. But it took a long time, and I think selling mayonnaise in Congo was a hell of a lot easier than selling an Accu Spina to a physiotherapist in Nottingham, for example, or to a chiropractor in Coventry.
Well, I was thinking about this earlier because I do a lot of work. I actually got to sell some machines for the arthrostim people that do adjustments, chiropractic adjustments like the thingy, but they do it with a tool. And we have a similar sort of thing. I've only done it once. I went to one conference and sold it with them, but I've used them for 10 years, and they're the same thing. Chiropractors are like, well, I want to do it by hand. I'm like, well, you're using this. It's the same thing. And BJ Palmer, the developer of chiropractic, not the founder, the developer, he used machines to get better results. He used the drop table, he used all these different things. And I think there's sometimes a resistance because of a perception which actually isn't true. We should use the best tool for the situation you're in. I mean, what is the situation? Who used this? Who's it intended for?
So I mean that's a great point, and perception, as they say, is reality. So any new thing takes a little bit of time because people have trained and they're getting good results. So who is this for? The reason this category developed was, firstly, there were some people who found that traction helped them. So this mechanism could occasionally give some relief. But the question was, why doesn't it get consistent results? And then there's this question of what are the limitations of manual therapy? Because if manual therapy was the sort of had the elixir, was the solution to all back pain, then you wouldn't have pain clinics, you wouldn't have MDs, you wouldn't have injections, and you wouldn't have surgery. So there's this category of patient, and it tends to be people who've got sort of a disc pathology, other conditions, of course, but typically, a lot of disc and some spinal stenosis conditions where the manual therapy on their own just aren't getting the results. Now, of course, there are other mechanisms, and chiropractors use coxflexion, different modalities to bring about results, and undoubtedly some highly skilled practitioners will get fantastic outcomes, but I would challenge anyone to say that they have 100% success rate.
It's impossible, isn't it?
And I tend to say to people when they do say things like this, like, well, not every patient who leaves your practice is not coming back because they're out of pain. It's because it hasn't worked. They've gone looking for something else. And every chiropractor, every PT, every osteopath has patients who have come from other clinics who haven't responded to the treatment. So for a category of patient who has, and it tends to be the chronic problems, 3 months or more, where the sort of natural cycle of healing hasn't occurred and things kind of get stuck. And it's that category of patient, herniated disc, leg pain, nerve pain, where they need something more than can physically be applied with the hands. And that's where the engineering solution kind of was developed. It's like the question was, how do you decompress and mobilize a specific spinal segment? Because a lot of the pathologies, it's quite specific. It's L4, L5, it's L5, S1, and we need to be able to focus our treatment at that level. Whereas previous treatments like traction, they were, they weren't targeted. And in order to be able to decompress a disc and then mobilize the joint, the soft tissues, so that we get some mobility back, you need high forces. So back to the origins of the IDD therapy, it was shown you need a force of about half a patient's body weight applied, and by applying that force at a specific angle, you would be able to open a disc space. So I use pounds, so I'm about 190 pounds I weigh. So the forces that are used to open the joint in my case would be sort of, if I do my maths, sort of 95 pounds worth of force, or outside, it might be 40 kilos. Now, if you go to a gym and you try and lift something like that up, it's you might be able to, but you can't sustain it. And the second part to the question was, okay, if I want to decompress the joint and I want to bring about mobility, I don't want to do it for like 2 minutes or 5 minutes, because I need to bring about change in the tissue. So it's like, okay, so how much time do we want to do it? What's the optimum time? And each treatment is 25 minutes. So a patient is they're having a targeted distraction force to decompress the joint with cycles of mobilization or oscillation. So they get 13 cycles during this 25-minute period, which you cannot do with your hands. You just cannot do, and you just can't do it. So if someone says they can, they can't. I'll try it. But so these components of the treatment are what make it different from manual therapy. A highly skilled manual therapy can get very good results for patients, of course. But there is that category who needs something more, and there are some people who don't like some manual therapy. So because this treatment is the other thing, when we apply these forces, the engineering solution is to be able to apply forces comfortably, because one of the problems with traction, it was a linear, the way the forces were applied, people could react with a spasm, which would cause an increase in intradiscal pressure. So the way the forces are delivered to open the targeted segment are applied in such a way as to be comfortable for the patient, which wasn't available before.
Is that why you have it on the incline?
So the incline is a separate thing. So the forces are controlled by a computer, but that's a good point in terms of the treatment table. It goes up and down. That's the Accu Spina. Now you could choose just to have a flat table, but the key thing is that the reason for that, and that obviously adds a bit, it adds engineering to the machine, is because if a patient is having this force for 25 minutes, you're stretching soft tissues. When they come off the machine, you do not want to be twisting and rotating. You've got sort of tensegrity in the soft tissues. You need muscles to reset. So when you bring someone off finishing a treatment, you bring them back up to vertical so that they return to load bearing in a safe manner. So that's a part of the treatment. So people getting off an old traction machine, it might be uncomfortable, particularly for this difficult, I'm going to call it a difficult category of patient. So that's a key. That's one of these questions. What do we need to do differently from traditional traction to bring about a different outcome? And that kind of ticks one of the boxes. And I think some chiropractic couches, they come into an upright position for that very reason.
Yeah. So I used to have them in my clinic.
Sorry.
I used to have them in my clinic called high-lows just for that reason. And sometimes you bring them up in stages because you've taken them off, you've got an angry disc, and therefore you're standing them up, and you want to put it on gradually.
Yeah. And in terms of those forces, so when we talk in terms of that, applying forces of half a patient's body weight, you don't start at that level. You start beneath that, sort of half body weight minus 15, 20 pounds maybe. But over a course of treatment, so I'm not going on this machine once. It's like I'm not going to go to the gym once and be fit. I need to go because I'm bringing about changes in soft tissue and structures, etc. During a process of treatment, those forces are gradually increased and people tolerate higher forces. And we go above half body weight to half body weight plus 10 or 15 pounds. So if you've got larger patients in particular, those forces really ramp up. There's some big people. Those are quite high forces, but they are comfortable. So these aspects of increasing forces, that's where, in terms of having a bed tilt, that's an important safety component of a treatment.
And you talked about a course of treatment. I mean, how long is a course of treatment for a patient, a standard patient?
Yeah, so for this category of patient, the original protocol, the IDD therapy protocols, was based on a course of 20 treatments over a 6 to 8 week period. So patients typically is quite intense. The original program was having people coming 5 times a week, twice a week, then 3 times a week, and then twice a week. I would say life gets in the way and not everybody can come 5 times a week. And we typically say, you need to come 3 times a week. So patients, we say to patients, anything less than 10, you're wasting your time. It's just not going to do anything. You have to do more. And then between that 10 and 20, then that's where things can really change as the tissues adapt. And some people do need more. Some people will have up to 30 sessions. And sometimes when, certainly here in Europe, but in certain circles in the States, if you start talking about programs of care where there are, a whole program of treatment, people think, are you just trying to get my cash? And it would be lovely if this worked within 5 sessions. If I go on the machine myself, I love it. The next day, my posture's improved. I'm feeling good. But for these category of patients, you'll just get kind of a boom bust cycle if you just put people on, have a few treatments and see how it works. It just doesn't work and you get relapses. So for this category of kind of chronic patient, somebody who's been in pain for quite some time, then 20 sessions is kind of what we're looking at. And then rehab exercises are kind of integral to the whole thing. So it's a program over a period of time.
When we're talking about disc issues, though, that's a normal amount of treatment. That's, it takes that long for the cells to regenerate, to rehydrate the disc, which I know that the Accu Spina does very well. It rehydrates the disc. I was looking at the MRIs earlier. Yeah,
I'll just jump in on there if I may.
No, that's fine.
No, if that's okay. So one of the things in the US, some chiropractors use the language of rehydrating discs, and I think that the body of evidence doesn't necessarily support people to say that IDD or any spinal decompression rehydrates discs. You are right. There are pre and post MRIs showing what we'd say improved hydration. Now, the big question is, how does that come about? And we tend to think if there's any improved hydration, it's because we freed movement in the joint. People can sleep better. We're working the thing. It's not like during these treatments we're pumping things up. And there will be some people where there is no change in the disc. They might be symptom free, but you do a repeat MRI and there's no change in the disc. So we're quite careful, not careful, but we just don't say IDD therapy rehydrates disc. It doesn't. Our goal is to decompress the disc, get movement back, and the body will heal itself. Now, if there is some improved hydration, that is fantastic, and that can happen, and we've seen it. But there's not enough for people to say, spinal decompression rehydrates discs. And I think sometimes when people saying it's rehydrating discs, people are like, well, there's not actually evidence to really back up that statement. But we're very much interested in movement and function, and in that process you can get some, we're supporting disc health by freeing the movement and taking pressure off it.
I like that phrase, supporting.
On that one, yeah. Sorry.
I like that, supporting disc health. That's a great way of putting it. And I think we can get into that shorthand sometimes where we say things like rehydrating discs or moving the joint, and when we're doing chiropractic maneuvers and things. And actually, what's happening and what is reality is different. And when you were talking about disc, it reminded me of the research that shows that you can have a huge disc that's causing a huge disc sequestration or excretration or whatever, and extrusion, and causes no pain. And you can have a tiny one that causes a lot of pain. And you can also have very asymptomatic discs that would be candidates for surgery. So when you're taking your goal is to get rid of the pain, right? That's the goal.
I think yes, but most people want to be out of pain. Our goal is to improve function, and it's kind of which comes first. Do you relieve the pain first, and then in function improves, or you improve function and then the pain takes care of itself? So I tend to though our goal is to, yes, we all want to be out of pain, but I also want you to be able to run for the bus. So I want you to have some function back too.
And as a chiropractor myself, and I looked at this for a business perspective, because does it require a chiropractor to run this?
So the chiropractor or PT or lead clinician. If I've got a problem, I come and see you, and you diagnose my condition. And if you determine that, okay, you've tried these things, you are a candidate for IDD, spinal decompression, then you may do the treatment yourself, or you may have someone else actually administer the treatment for you. So whether that is an assistant. There are different kind of regulations in different countries. So you might have different therapists, but it doesn't need to be a DC actually doing the treatment. The patient is under your guidance, they're under your care, and you're prescribing the treatment, and the protocols are fairly clear in terms of what to follow. So you'll kind of, if you've got an assistant, then that person can be trained to administer the treatment under your overall supervision.
Because that's basically what I contacted you for before my handbrake turn, if you like, in healthcare, was because being busy, I had this subset of people that were having a difficult time with the disc, and they have one option. They have another option besides us, which was surgery. Yeah, and we know the results on that's not very good. And I came across what you were doing, and I thought this is a great option. And also, I do the diagnosis, and then I just monitor from a distance, and that frees me up a little bit. Is that what you're finding happens with clinics?
Yes, and definitely. So there's a few motivations why a clinic would want the treatment. So you're a highly skilled manual therapist. So if I have some back pain, I want to come and see, DC. I want to come and see you, and I want you to fix my back. Now, you're going to see a lot of patients, and you've only got so many hours in the day and so much time. So for the category of patient that needs something more than you can give with your manual skills, then and they tick the boxes as far as the decompression, then you can have somebody else do that for you. So that offers an advantage for the practice. Yes.
And so, if it's okay to ask you, what is the kind of like the business model? Because I'm sure chiropractors are listening, going, well, how much does it cost? Is it a revenue share? How does it work?
Yeah, so patients tend to self-pay for the course of treatment, and it depends where you are in the country. The per treatment price goes anything from $200 down to $100 per session. A patient, we tend to book the sessions in sort of 45 minutes. Some will do it in 35 minutes. We don't just put somebody on the machine. There's a few adjuncts that go with it, but depending on how you do it, typically if we say an average of $150 per session, and patients have a course of, say, 20 sessions, that makes $3,000 per patient. Okay, so in a typical day, some clinics which are very busy, depending on the hours, they can do sort of 12 treatments a day. That might be up to 200 treatments a month. At sort of $150. Now I'm using that 150 as an average. As I say, some is higher, some is lower. So there's a very good business model there. But equally, a practice which is maybe smaller and isn't seeing as much, if they can see 3 patients a month and get an extra sort of that's sort of $6,000 to $9,000 a month from this treatment for that niche of patients, it's very compelling. And people perhaps, how much does these things cost? Most people will lease the machine. So there's finance available. We don't make money on the finance, and it's roughly $1,250 a month, something of that.
So that figure adds up quite well, doesn't it? So
we tend to say, one patient a month, and you're in profit. You've got this asset in your business, which helps you, offer more than the current services. I'd say one thing actually, Paul, and it's an interesting one, because I observe some material, in America. It's a different system, obviously, in America, where insurance is expensive. The cost of surgeries and injections is very expensive. We're not anti surgery. If I need spinal surgery, we'll have surgery. My father's 87. When he was about 82, he had IDD on his lower back. He had neuropathy and he lost his balance. He had decompression surgery on his neck. When surgery is the right thing to do, it's the right thing to do. An injection may help some people, but if we can avoid that and we have a conservative option, which is costing a hell of a lot less than those pain management things, and we're addressing the causes, we're getting function back, and we're relieving pain, then it's a very compelling offering for a clinic, particularly as there's this I'm not going to say pressure, but the whole conservative, I don't know if you call it conservative spine care, but non-invasive spine treatment is really where we see spine care going. The surgery is there for that category that need it, but there's an awful lot of people who need something more than manual therapy and not getting out of pain, and they just want to get out of that back pain no man's land.
I find that really an interesting perspective, and I think to clarify for our UK listeners, I coach people, I mentor people, and half of them in the UK, half of them in America. So for the UK people, back surgery actual cost is really high. Like in America, you'll pay $50,000 to $200,000 sometimes for back surgery, and so this option of $3,000 is very compelling.
Yeah, and you're not taking any, okay, there are the outcomes, the long-term outcomes for surgery, versus not having surgery are, obviously some people have, surgery can be very, very effective. And like I say, not against surgery, but once you've had surgery, you've had surgery. Here you've got an opportunity to spend an awful lot less, and there will be. So there was a study published, it was a US neurosurgeon, European Musculoskeletal Review, 129 patients considered surgical candidates. 92% of those didn't have surgery. That's it's not a huge cohort, but that's really significant if you start adding some costs of surgery. So some people went on to have surgery. It didn't mean that the IDD failed. It just didn't bring about the outcome, and we don't have a 100% success rate. But if you help 3/4 of people who might be considering surgery, you are making one hell of a saving.
And you're changing a lot of people's lives, because multiple research has said 5 years later, most people feel worse after back surgery. And, some are going to feel great, like you say, some are necessary, but some are on that borderline where you come in and the clinics that have this can really help out. With surgery as well, I always used to say that surgery, you can't take it back. It's a one-stop shop, but this you can try, and if it doesn't work, you've got that other option. And I think that is the great opposite. And I wish everybody got 75, even a quarter would be a great saving of people, but 3/4 people not taking surgery is fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, when because I work with clinics all over the world, and I sort of. We're doing sort of clinical audits. We now have sort of templates so that clinics can do clinical audits, and we, there's sort of the anecdotal stuff that I am close to. So if I was talking to you, Paul, and you had a treatment, I'd say, how are your outcomes? You would have a pretty good feeling about how your patients had responded, and if they weren't getting better, you'd be beating me up and saying, "What the hell have you told me this machine for?" Which thankfully hasn't happened. But that is kind of the so there's some published research around the subject, and then there's the kind of what's happening in the clinic, and just on that, evidence based is obviously the mantra of healthcare around the world. And the Accu Spina has an inbuilt VAS pain score visual analog scale, so we're tracking pain. We also use, and I don't know if you use the Oswald Street Disability Index. That's here. So and that's for sort of function and what you can do. So every patient having a program of IDD therapy, we have that capability. Oh no, we don't have that capability. Well, sorry, we have that capability to track, and it's So certainly the pain is each treatment we're entering pain scores with the treatment to see how patients are progressing. We use an Oswald Street outside of the, in sort of in the clinic. You don't need to do an Oswald Street every time someone comes in, because the changes take a little bit more time, and there are other things. So we're very much towards evidence-based practice. There are some other objective outcome measures that we use in some clinics, and that's something that I'm promoting. I won't go into that now. But here in the UK, as an example, one of the largest insurance companies now pays for IDD therapy in its own right, because they have weighed it up against the cost of patients who perhaps had been given the nod to go for surgery. And it's like in the UK, it might be sort of between, I'd say, $20,000 ish, let's say $15,000 to $20,000 for certain surgeries. And if you can save a few of those, you are saving a lot of money. And the other thing, I guess, about the surgery pool is, okay, there are some people, it's that small, I don't know, it's the 80-20 rule, but there'll be some of those patients who don't respond to surgery, and they go on and they need more care, and the costs ramp up, and, you get depression and all that kind of thing. So it's all, this is the way we're seeing things progressing with the conservative spine care and the programs, and part of my job is really trying to coordinate the clinics and get them all kind of trying to do things consistently, collate data so that we can demonstrate the outcomes, acknowledge that there are some patients who aren't going to respond, and then better identify who's going to do well versus actually this might not be the right thing for you. So there's a lot going on.
Because you also help out with marketing for this sort of thing. Does that tie into the marketing as well? You can take these results and show them over here, or how does that work?
Yeah. So with the marketing is really interesting, and different clinics are kind of more geared up, and sometimes marketing seen, certainly in Europe, is seen, marketing is that bad. Obviously, it's far more competitive. You've got a different structure in the States, and people are much, how can I market my business? It's like, I've got this bit of kit. So we do have, marketing programs, if you like. We work with people. There's certain things that we do with a clinic, and then we have people, for example, with Google AdWords, helping reach out to people with a certain condition, like a herniated disc or something like that. And then there are other sort of marketing things that clinics can do. But I think when I'm working with clinics, I think because you're offering a solution which is non-standard in terms of, it's not that, say, chiropractic or physical therapy is a commodity, but it's like, what makes you better? So if you tell me you're a back pain expert, everyone's saying they're a back pain expert. When you're helping this difficult category of patient who can't get a solution for somewhere else, then you're automatically elevating your standing in the eyes of the community. It's like, yeah, we treat the worst patients, so your basic pain is bread and butter. And what we also see is that as if you're making more revenue in your practice, your marketing possibilities raise up. And what we see, so I co-own a clinic in London, Paul, and what we see is that people will see that, and they might be, I've got a bit of a problem with my hip, or my partner's got a problem with their knee. Do you do that? My clinic's very much geared around spine, but most people coming, they know somebody who's got an issue with something, and so you kind of get the cross referral opportunities from the USP, the unique selling point of the specialist spine care. How's that?
That's perfect. I was actually, we were talking about clinics. How many clinics actually have this or in the world and Europe, wherever?
Yeah. So, well, globally, there's, in terms of the Accu Spiners, there's over 2,000 globally, and so there's over 1,000 clinics. And in the US, there are clinics who've got 3, even 6 Accu Spiners in one location, which is kind of amazing. So in the UK, there's 35. There's machines actually for the Accu Spina. They're exported to China. I think that, it's kind of probably one of the few US exports to China, I guess. But in the Middle East, I'm going to Oman next month. There's machines in Dubai, Germany. I installed one in Nigeria, one in Cyprus, South America. In Peru. There are machines kind of, all over the place, if you like. And part of coming back to that marketing, part of my thing is initially the machines would go into clinics. Now we're really trying to bring the clinics together to share best practice and kind of just raise visibility. And that's where we have, the clinics who have an Accu Spina, they become an IDD therapy disc clinic. So that's kind of part of the identification of the clinic as a specialist center for that category of problem.
You don't have any in Salem, Oregon yet, though, do you? I'm just checking because I might be interested in this.
To be honest, I don't know in terms of Salem, Oregon. I can certainly find out. So there are different. Actually, it's interesting. There are machines in all over America, but there are pockets where there aren't any. And some of the clinics, let's just say, they haven't positioned the service as strongly, is that a word, as well as they might. So
they're too
that's
busy doing the other stuff, and they forget about the thing that can bring them more money. I've found that so many times.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we've all got. I think probably, our phones could probably do far more than we actually use them for, and the same with the machine. If they're not really using it and they're busy, as you say, but those clinics which orientate their practice around that, they do fabulously well.
Well, like I say, I phoned up the clinic in the chiropractic clinic because I wanted a chiropractor's eye view, and they were too busy to even talk to me.
Yeah,
I thought that's pretty good. Now, Steve.
Well, actually, they sent me a message. He sent me a message. I didn't know you were going to phone the clinics, and that's great that you did, and I'm glad that you did. And he sent me a message that, "Hi, Steve. Sorry, I couldn't talk to Paul. We're just so busy. So anyway, so I was aware of that, and I know what happens in the clinic. So
that's fantastic. If we can get this into more clinics that can treat this niche market, that they always say you want a niche. And this niche, like you say, sets you up to be a leader in the field, and it sells your other services as well. It's a referral machine. I think it's a wonderful thing to bring into a clinic. Now, is there anything else you want to tell me? Because I've tried to compare our two lists. So I've got 2 pages, you've got 2 pages. Have you covered everything you want to cover?
Well, I think I've gone on too long with some of my answers. I'm excited about this. I'm kind of interested, actually, Paul. Obviously, you're working with clinics in different places, and I mean, spine care. Would you say that's the most competitive category, but that's also the condition that people see the most of?
I can give you a very good perspective, because in the UK during the recession, my clinics grew 300%. Okay?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
In America, the competitiveness is far more. We need more chiropractors in England and Scotland and Ireland and Wales. Sorry, I'm actually Scottish. It's okay. But over here in America, they have a saturation. I was at the Florida National Convention, the biggest chiropractic convention in the world, and the amount of chiropractors in just the state of Florida is enormous. There's a highly competitive market, and they need something that differentiates them. And I go through different things that differentiates them. You talked about before, some people don't like the being cracked, adjusted, as we call it. And we have ways of dealing with that help people differentiate. But this is another niche product that helps people. It generates money for the clinic. It helps people in need, and it gets rid of those people that are nervous. It helps them. And so competitiveness, you have to have a unique selling point. And this is one of those unique selling points.
And in America, am I right? Is back pain is the largest, is the number one sort of musculoskeletal problem?
It is, and I suggest in most of the world. But like I say, the competitiveness is far greater here than it is in England. In England, I coach differently to what I coach over here, because it's much more marketing orientated, a lot more Facebook, a lot more effort. Whereas in England, you just get your unique selling point and set up a few systems, and before you know it, it's successful.
I mean, that's true. I kind of see. So speaking to DCs and the differences obviously between PTs. Some patients, if they think that they're just coming for, if they're just thinking chiropractic is just a click or an adjustment, and they've been in pain for some time, they're not going to necessarily come to a chiropractor because they're thinking, actually, that's not going to address my problem. Now, there's great benefits from going to see a chiropractor, but if somebody's perception is, we were talking about perception earlier, that you're not going to be able to help them, then they're not going to come to you. Whereas if you've got a comprehensive program which has, a sort of as a long-term goal and an end point in their mind, perhaps, because you're going to do exercise and things, then it's like, actually, that's quite engaging, and perhaps I'll come and see you because I don't want a $30, $40 adjustment. I need something more. And that's where the program, perhaps reinforces their positioning.
I would describe it as horses for courses. which may confuse the Americans. What that basically means is different things have different things. Like, for instance, if I have a shoulder patient come in, I guarantee I will use the arthrostim instrument because it works better. If I've got a mid-thoracic pain, I'm going to use my hand adjustment because I know that works better 90% of the time. If I've got a very tricky disc with referral pain and it's not responding, what am I going to do now? And that's where this comes in, right? And I think it also gives you that other avenue of attention. Like in America, people might be searching for alternatives to surgery, and they might not be searching for chiropractor. If you've got those two avenues coming in together, all of a sudden you have a higher reach, a unique selling point, and a higher reach of person coming to your clinic. So I waffle on as well, apparently. So, how do people get in contact with you, Stephen?
So you can find me on LinkedIn as Stephen Small, and if you're looking for IDD therapy, you'll find me. There's a website, mydiscclinic.com, which will direct you to a page where you can get more information about the treatments. That's, mydiscclinic.com is where you can go, and if you want to get some, there's a sort of information pack, you can download that, and don't worry, we won't spam you. You can get what you want, and if you're interested, you can find out more. mydiscclinic.com or Stephen Small. Find me on LinkedIn. You'll eventually find me as anything related to IDD therapy. If you probably see this face in a few different places, and I'm there.
If you can't find it, I'm going to put links in the description on Facebook, and also just come to the Facebook page, Instant Chiro, at Instant Chiro or instantchiro.com, and it'll all be linked to Stephen. Or find me on LinkedIn, and I'm linked to Stephen, because we've chatted a long time, haven't we, Stephen?
I think we have. I think you said 10-minute chat, Paul, and it was like, I need a bit more. Might need a bit more time, We've been
playing phone tennis for a long time now.
We have, yes.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate it, Stephen from Intervention. I told you I'd get that wrong again. Stephen from IDD Therapy.
Much easier.
And Paul from Instant Chiro. We love you all above, down, and inside out.
Have you got a way of telling me to shut up? Kind of like. Okay.
Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. I can't do this. These ones go.
Chiropractors love the patients, and they also like money as a general rule. And so that brought both of them together, and they also find it difficult with discs. It's the hottest one. So,
Okay.
And that your system encompasses all of that, and it just needs to be out there more. I wish there was one in Oregon I could go and try out.
So are you busy with your coaching?
Yes. I'm as busy as I want to be. I could do with a few extra candidates. I'm opening what's called the Cairo Club, which is because I'm technically financially free. I don't need to work, which is great, and I want everybody to get there. And it's a lot easier than they think. Which doesn't mean I have a huge amount in the bank. It means I have money coming in that pays the money going out, which is a lot easier to achieve than trying to get $1 billion or something. But yes, I'm trying to get like a lower interaction group of chiropractors. So I see them once a month. So usually it's quite intense. They'll call me up and I go, okay, this is what you got to do. You got to do this. You got to do that, and we'll have this interaction. But a lot of it's video based now, and so I can do a cheaper one and go, hey, here's this. And so we're looking to get probably 1,000 chiropractors on that one. So,
and what would they be a month for that?
It's $10. That's the unique selling point. I'm giving, because I don't need to do it. It's a lot easier. I'm giving, like, my course that used to be $100 a month for $10. For $30, it's $50. They can join me on my monthly roundtables where we chat through their options, and there's 4 of them and things like that. It's quite a much lower cost, I call it mentoring light, to see if they want mentoring, if they want coaching. $10 you can try it.
I may not know you. I think, okay, well, $10 a month is nothing. Even if I don't do hardly anything with it, I pick snippets out of it, and
you can cancel it any time. With no contract. Whereas before coaching, I wasn't like this, but a lot of my coaching was always like, you sign up for a year, you have to pay for a year, and it's $600 a month. you know, and you're like, whoa, wait a minute, you know, it's that fear. Whereas this is like, try us out, $10. If you like us, we'll go to the next level.
Yeah.
We'll see if it works. If it doesn't work, I've not lost anything.
No, but I think at that price, that's a nothing. They could just leave their subscription and forget about it and never look at you. But obviously, you want them to get the benefit from it. But
well, some of those will turn into ghosts. You know, people that aren't there, and they'll just pick little bits out, and then some will be really interactive. There's a Facebook group, etc., etc., and then the monthly calls will go up, and you know they'll be posted with people's permission onto the group. It'll just grow and grow and grow, and before we know it, we'll have a community that we can then have our own conference and things, and then it'll start feeding into actual return for me as opposed to just fun.
And then would you be able to, if you wanted to? So I like the messages that you sent, and you know we're not monetizing this thing, but it's like you know. Not quite the YouTuber endorsements of products, but you know, here's a product. If you want some information, go here.
Yeah, if I like a product, like I like your product. I've researched your product. I've looked at the angles. I've looked at everything you're talking about, and I liked your product back when I first started thinking of it until everything happened, and to now. And so, if I think it'll work, and I think it will benefit a clinic, and it will because a lot of my clients go, I need more patients, and then they come in and we start coaching for like 5 minutes, and then before they know it, I've got too many patients, you know, and then you've got to go, well, okay, what's your hard bit? What's the bit that's causing you headaches? Well, now we can shift that headache to here, and it'll still get you money. You know, you've got IDD therapy. Your headaches are always going to be discs. You know, they're the hard ones, and so we can move those to IDD therapy, and maybe you're not in that room all the time. You know. All of a sudden, your growth is accelerated and your stress is decelerated. Yeah,
it's interesting. So I've worked with so there's different coaches. So within physical therapy and osteopathy here, who I know probably more so than chiropractic.
Like Painless Practice, they're a good osteopathy based one. And my coach before me, who was wonderful, he's not doing it anymore. Terry Chimes.
Right, that's interesting because. Shall I jump in?
Yeah, go for it.
My colleague David, who was the guy who was in the States at the factory.
Yeah.
He said I said that I was working with a British chiro, or I was doing this thing with a British chiro called Paul, and I couldn't remember your surname.
Yeah.
He goes, "What's his surname?" I said, "I don't know," and he goes, "I wonder if he knows Terry Chimes because my colleague here is that he's." Anyway, there's another story there. He works with Terry, so he knows Terry very, very well. And David said, "I wonder if Paul knows Terry Chimes." So
Terry Chimes. Terry and Bryn Chimes are awesome.
Because Terry's just been over to the States, I think, for something. I don't know what it was. Was that anything to do with you?
He's from the Clash, you know that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so he played on Billy Idol, all the songs I've listened to growing up. That's Terry playing Black Sabbath, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, he's the drummer. So he's always.
So what was your connection with him? So you were working? Were you in his when he was doing?
He was mentoring me. He was mentoring me. Him and his brother Bryn, who's not a chiropractor but is excellent, or wasn't. I think they've stopped now. I've been told they've stopped.
Terry still does a bit of practice, like 2 or 3 days a week. I think.
Yeah. I don't think he's doing the coaching anymore. I think he's moved to dentist actually, which is a shame. But people in England have a hard time because they come from this GCC. The colleges are very restrictive, and it took me a long time. If it wasn't for Terry, I wouldn't be doing this now because
really,
Terry, I was doing what you do at university. You're programmed. You do half-an-hour appointments. You do this. You do that, and everything's drudgery. And that's what's happening with osteopathy in the UK. Everything's kind of like, oh, my machine's just shut off there. Everything's just kind of like pushed down. You know, you've got to treat them for this long. You've got to give them this. And it's not actually true. When you treat your family members, you treat them very efficiently. You care about them the most, but you do it in a very quick time. You know, you show me a chiropractor that doesn't treat somebody for treats a family member for longer than 10 minutes. They don't. The rest is marketing, and there's different ways to market, like a unique selling point. But yeah, but it wasn't for Terry. Terry opened my eyes, and if he ever watches this, I don't think he does because he's just had a new Charlie and everything. Then Terry, thank you. You are amazing. And Bryn, don't forget Bryn.
That'd be
Bryn,
nice to help.
yeah,
I'll,
Bryn is
if I
awesome.
tell David that that it was with you, that's okay? Yeah, that's
Yeah,
no
of course.
problem. Yeah. Oh, brilliant! That's a small world actually.
Yeah, but yeah,
It's where our office was not far from where he practiced. So, and David lived in Loughton, which is not far from where. What was the name? Woodford, where Terry was. Anyway,
Terry practices from his house now. Which is what I started doing, and now I've moved away from it, and he's moved back to it now. Yeah. He's got an X-ray machine in his house.
Work-life balance and kids and stuff.
Yeah, I've got 6 kids, and they're all like crazy. So I literally have to work from home. There's no way around it.
If you've got some soundproofing, or there's
Well, I heard them come back. I said, I'll be done by this time, and then I heard them come back. I'm like, oh no! So there's only 3 of them there at the moment. So.
What Paul, just so that I know, I mean, I've looked at your website, and so in terms of your working with chiropractors, what if I was a chiropractor, what's the main pitch that you like? Not pitch, what's your main product, if you like, whether that's you or
my main products. Well, I actually have a combination of products. So I help some companies sell courses.
Yeah.
I coach various clinics.
Yes.
And that expands
in technique or in building.
In building business. Business.
Stuff.
But I would say I don't coach clinics. I would say I coach people to help them become more efficient in the clinic, and then more financially free, allowing them to actually be free with their healthcare. Because the more money you have, the more options you have.
Yes.
And you're not forcing things all the time.
Yes.
You're not trying to sell because you don't need to sell.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm the same school.
Yourself, you've got 3 children, wonderful girls, and it says you hope they don't get married soon.
I can't speak for experience with sons, but daughters, they're wonderful, of course. And I'm hoping for a modern wedding where the father doesn't have to pick up the tab for 3 traditional weddings. And if they can hang on a little bit, then I'll be quite happy.
And how old are they?
My eldest is 22.
Oh wow! Okay.
We've got 18 and 16. So yes, I've got 1 left at home. Middle one's just started uni, and the eldest did a degree, has done a year's working, and is now doing a master's. So
fantastic!
So it's all happening.
You look a lot younger than me, and I've got 6 kids, and they start at like 16 months, 18 months, and go up to 12. So either I started later, or you look a lot younger than me.
I think I might have started a bit early. I started a little bit earlier, perhaps, and you look fantastic, given that you've got 6 kids.
I think after 3, it just gets the same. It's just normal.
Yeah, it's an extra potato in the pan.
Yeah, we actually just count them off in the car. I'm not even kidding. Sometimes we go, okay, number off, and they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we get to 6, we're fine. Right, and also you had an interesting story because you've been in 34 African countries. Tell me what was happening with that.
Yes. So I've been doing the in the healthcare for about 15 years, but prior to that, I had a sort of career handbrake turn when I came into healthcare. But prior to that, after university, I worked in a number of roles in Africa, predominantly West Africa, and over a period of sort of a decade. I've visited 34 countries and multiple times, from sort of Libya to Congo to Angola, South Africa, Sierra Leone, all over the place, doing a whole variety of roles. So I spoke French, which kind of got me my first job. I sort of blagged it a little bit, and I found myself working in West Africa. Absolutely loved it, and then a sort of, as sometimes things happen. Paths cross and opportunities present themselves, and then new things develop. But I think at a certain point, when you're bored sitting in an airport, you start counting them up just out of curiosity. And I'm quite frustrated. In West Africa, there's Guinea-Bissau, which is a small ex-Portuguese colony, which I haven't been to, and that's the only one I haven't been to in West Africa. And I kind of think maybe one day I'll go back. But quite interesting times.
It is interesting, and in fact, you had an interesting experience by selling some mayonnaise by a mobile phone light. Just to Americans, that's a cell phone light. So let's just listen to this one for a second.
Yeah, of a few roles that I have, one was I was actually sort of exporting foodstuffs and different materials to different countries, and I actually worked with a company and we represented Blue Plate Mayonnaise, which is in New Orleans, and I was in Congo, and I had a number of products that I was selling, and basically I'd get in a taxi, look for trucks going to the market, and the big trucks with the brands on, they tended to be the distributors. So I'd kind of go follow that truck, and I found myself, I don't know what the brand was that I was following, but I've ended up at this market fairly late in the evening, and it'd gone dark, and I kind of knocked on the door of this guy. Anyway, long story short, the trade was controlled by some people from Mali in West Africa, and I knocked on the door, and he's like, "What's this English dude doing in a market in Congo?" And we started talking, and I was telling him all about this wonderful Blue Plate mayonnaise from New Orleans, which is just fantastic. They eat a lot of mayonnaise with bread rather than butter. And as we were talking, we started just talking about prices and the marketing and how good this mayonnaise was. And I'd got my pot of mayonnaise. Yeah, try this. It's c'est bon. They speak French. And then there was a power cut, and it was like, oh my gosh, and it was like pitch black. So early days of mobile phones, it's like, we've got a cell phone. Sorry, we've got a light on this cell phone, and we pulled out the cell phone, got the light quite dark, and we're looking at the prices, working out the prices for this mayonnaise to get to Congo, and we signed the deal, and Blue Plate mayonnaise from New Orleans was being sold in the markets of Congo. Thanks. Yeah, it's a little bit different to what I'm doing now, but it was all good fun at the time. I liked it.